Good morning, everyone. I'm John, and I'm delighted to be your worship associate this morning. I hope that everyone enjoyed getting an extra hour of sleep. I certainly have a lot more energy than I normally do. And enjoy the leaves behind us. I don't think we're going to have much more of this, so those of us that are fortunate to be here physically, I hope you enjoy the view behind us, if nothing else. No, there's lots more to come. Don't go yet. Okay, we're just getting started. Welcome to everyone present in Worship Hall this morning, and to those of you taking part via electronic streaming from your home or wherever you may be. We acknowledge that our FirstU campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin-Anishinaabe territory, and that the work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. Our goal is to educate ourselves and all who have ears to hear and be of service to those who are at risk and to advocate for justice. Do take care and take advantage of online opportunities at FirstU to stay in touch during this time. If you are new to FirstU and would like to learn more about us, please contact us through our email at welcome@firstunitarianottawa.ca. Following our service at 11:30 a.m., please join us as well for a special version of our traditional hospitality hour. You will find the Zoom link on our website at www.firstunitarianottawa.ca or in our weekly email newsletter, the EUU. And now, here is Carl from our board with announcements for today. Carl.
Lovely people. I apologize. I know that it's somewhat rude behavior not to take your cap off in church, but I looked in the mirror in the morning and I saw this horrible cowlick, so hence the hat. Anyways, the first announcement is we have a fall congregational meeting, which will be on November 21st at 2:30 p.m. on Zoom. Watch your email for notices, including budget info and strategic planning sessions that will happen the week before. Second of all, we have an EAG Environmental Action Group announcement. One area where the COP26 conference fell short was in financial commitment to support vulnerable, developing, and stable and island nations, which have contributed less to climate change but are affected the most. For this week's advocacy, we are reminding you please to remind the Prime Minister and other politicians and leaders that there is not only a climate crisis, but an inequality crisis. Tell them to act now in delivering our fair share of climate financing commitments. Further details for contacting politicians and leaders are available in this week's EUU. Thank you.
Good morning on behalf of the Pledge Committee. The Pledge Committee has never been known for being particularly subtle. And in keeping with folk philosophies, I guess the Beatles are kind of considered folky. Okay, I think you get the point. Yeah. So we're here to report that we have about 45% participation, which means we're missing a lot of people who have not given a pledge. We're about 75% of the way to meeting our financial goal, and we would like you, if you have not already pledged, to please look at firstunitarianottawa.ca under donations, the banner donations, followed by annual giving. So let's see if we can get that number up closer to 100% participation. Thank you. Thanks, Larry.
Excellent. Okay. I think I'll take this off. I am so tired of wearing masks. Amen to that. During the continuing responses to COVID, we encourage you to sign up to receive the EUU, our weekly email newsletter, check our Facebook page and our web page for notices and updates. Our calendar is as full as ever, albeit much of it is online right now. Whatever your heritage, whatever your faith, whomever you love, and however you identify, today you are part of our spiritual community.
See if I can do that without inadvertently removing my hearing aids. Bonjour, mes amis. Good morning, one and all. We are here together on this spectacular morning. You can just tune me out and worship there. That's just fine. I'm the Reverend Eric and I am honored to serve this faith community. You know, you come to a Unitarian church on a Sunday morning, you never know what you're going to get, whether it's the Beatles or anything. On one Sunday during my parish internship, I was preaching and I noticed some people, the tech volunteers of the congregation, they were setting up a microphone for vocal and a guitar, and I was like, what's going on? I don't know about us having a guitarist. And they said, Eric, look out in the pews. Utah Phillips is here. And if you don't know Utah Phillips, he, forgive me, I'm going to say words that shouldn't be uttered in church. He was a union organizer's wet dream. He was a lion-haired, bearded bear of a man who was unapologetically socialist and a great singer too. And he was here to go to church, and they were setting up, and I was like, is he going to sing? Well, we don't know, but he might want to. So I went up to him and said, Mr. Phillips, we're so glad you're here. Are you wanting to sing this morning? He said, no, son, it's Utah, and I just came to church. So welcome, one and all. Yes, today we're talking about the inspiration folk music can provide. And we'll definitely be using that term folk music widely. The Beatles was a perfect choice. Thank you, Terry. But that will come shortly. First, we light our chalice this morning to these words adapted from those by my colleague Lisa Day. Why a flaming chalice? The question comes. It's the cup of life, we answer. A cup of blessings overflowing, a cup of water to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of wine for dedication and celebration, the flame of truth, the fire of purification, oil for anointing, healing. Out of chaos, fear, horror, thus was the symbol crafted generations ago now. So may it be for us, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. Our chalice is lit. And now our opening song.
All the weary mothers of the earth shall finally rest. We shall take their babies in our arms and do our best. When the sun is low upon the fields, to love and music they will yield, and the weary mothers of the earth shall rest.
And the farmer on his tractor and beside his plow will stand there in confusion as we wet his brow with the tears of all the businessmen who see what they have done to him, and the weary farmers of the earth shall rest, and the aching workers of the world again shall sing these words in mighty choruses to all will bring. We shall no longer be the poor, for no one owns us anymore, and the workers of the world again shall sing. When the soldiers burn their uniforms in every land, and the foxholes at the borders will be left unmanned. General, when you come for your review, the troops will have forgotten you, and the men and women of the earth shall rest.
Thank you. Our call to worship today is written by Kimberly Ann Carlson. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there's a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so, you begin seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Come, let us worship together.
I am the Reverend Ellen Bell. I am the spiritual care visitor for this congregation. At this time in the service, we accept personal joys and sorrows, and we recognize these by placing stones in water and allowing the ripples to carry those wishes out to the universe, where people may either congratulate or commiserate. We have one personal wish this morning for Tanya, who has undergone surgery this week. This stone is to wish a happy Diwali for all of those who are celebrating. And this is to remind everybody that this coming Thursday is Remembrance Day. And one final stone to take and hold all those wishes that are held in the recesses of our hearts. We will now have a moment of silence.
Our story today is Change Sings by the poet Amanda Gorman, with pictures by Lauren Wong, and no one is going to be able to tell it better than our own Anusha.
Can I have a stool?
Yeah, we can do that. 1 minute.
I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change coming, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mysteries, I sing with all the planet and it hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strength and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings. There's love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distance, from where and how we came. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I'm the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like a seed. I'm just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom's rights. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the waves starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change drumming. Won't you sing along? The end. Thank you.
Some readings. First one by Pete Seeger. The artist in ancient times inspired and entertained, educated their fellow citizens. Modern artists have an additional responsibility to encourage others to be artists. Why? Because technology is going to destroy the human soul unless we realize that each of us must in some way be a creator as well as a spectator or a consumer. Make your own music, write your own books, if you would keep your soul. Second reading by Joy Harjo. The stuff I need for singing by whatever means is garnered from every thought, every heart that ever pounded the earth. The shapes of mountains, cities, a whistle leaf of grass, or a human bent with loss. We'll revise the pattern of the story, the song. I take it from there, play through the heartbreak of the tenderness of being until I am the sky, the earth, the song, and the singer.
Thank you, John. Yesterday afternoon, we held a memorial celebration in this space for community member Ted Elliott. Ted and his wife Catherine were married at FirstU, and the congregation met out on Elgin Road. In addition to piano from Elizabeth Morrison, the family chose songs for the celebration by the Rankin family from Nova Scotia, as well as South Africa's Ladysmith Black Mambazo. The lyrics to the Rankin family's song, Rise Again, were perfect. When the waves roll on over the waters and the ocean cries, we look to our sons and daughters to explain our lives, as if a child could tell us why, that as sure as the universe, as sure as the sea, as sure as the wind in the trees, we will rise again in the faces of our children. We rise again in the voices of our song. we rise again in the waves out on the ocean, and we then rise again. Now, I don't know about you, and perhaps this will turn out to be a more confessional sermon than anything else, but I've read philosophy. I've read dire treatises of dire warnings, but it is the lyrics of songs that most often stay in my head, ringing in my ears, those earworms that are sometimes more than welcome, calling me forward, comforting me. Now, I want to say right at the start that talking about any form of art is risky business. What inspires one person will likely leave the next cold. The worst church address I ever heard was when the preacher was going on about a particular piece of sculpture. He had placed it in the middle of the central aisle, but it was invisible to anyone who wasn't sitting directly next to it. All I heard was about this famous thing that I couldn't see, and frankly, the preacher's ego. So if folk music or music in general is not your thing, well, this address is titled Folksong Philosophy. At least you've been warned. I've mentioned to some of you that I've preached a sermon called Folksong Philosophy at every church I've served, although the content is always different. I have to say that because it's true. Still, because musical tastes are not universal, I was reluctant to do so, although I wanted to preach on folksong philosophy for years before I first did. Until a minor epiphany came to me when watching on Netflix, a couple years after it was first aired, an episode from the old show The West Wing, and a single line of dialogue sealed the deal. Now I have to ask here, I know I'm from the States. Did you guys get The West Wing here? Okay, I'm seeing hands, so woof, save my soul. The scene, the line, came in a flashback sequence during the first episode of the show's second season. Josh has stopped in New York on his way to New Hampshire to see if the former governor there, whose campaign for president is solidly polling in single digits, may in fact be the real deal. In Manhattan, he looks up Sam, an old friend from the days they clerked for members of Congress, and the two are talking about the less than ethically satisfying work they've been doing since then. Sam explains to Josh that the work he does as a corporate attorney is to limit liability exposure for the owners of low-quality oil tankers. Josh responds in deadpan, "I can't believe no one ever wrote a folk song about that." And it was then I knew I had to preach on folk music. You will notice that I am using that term folk music widely. Today, most musicians who I would describe as singing folk songs call themselves singer-songwriters, eschewing what some feel is a term that harkens back only to the 60s, maybe the 50s. Well, I don't know about that, nor do I care, frankly, what people call themselves all that much. What matters to me is the music and the spirit with which they perform it. Folk music, music of the people, is singable and often reflects the experience, challenges, and hopes we face as we find our way through this thing called life. Yesterday, the harmonies of Ladysmith Black Mambazo singing their version of the classic Western English song, actually, Amazing Grace, reminded me of a lesson a musicologist experienced during her time in Durban, South Africa, before the fall of apartheid. I heard the woman at a church forum years ago, before Mandela was released, before South Africa's Truth and Reconciliation process began, and I regret not making note of her name. My apologies, she deserved that. In any case, she recounted her ride from the airport to where she would be staying in Durban, where she was looking forward to a music competition, and where she would be studying musical groups from the townships surrounding the city center. And if you know South Africa at all, you know that those townships often house some of the poorest of those communities. When her Afrikaner taxi driver asked her what brought her to South Africa, she told him the story. She was there to study music from the townships. He replied that she'd soon change her ticket for an earlier flight back home. That township music was simply too much, and there was no method of madness to its cacophony. The next day, she went to hear the beginning of the musical competition, the music she was there to study and enjoy. And at first, when she listened, it did resemble what her driver had complained about. There was a sense of cacophony to her Western ear. And then she said, well, enough of this listening, let me sing too. And that's when the magic happened. The music wasn't meant to be listened to in the Western sense or to a Western ear. It was to be sung. And once she joined in, she heard a harmony rise over there to be carried forward and changed. The music became a living, moving, evolving thing. The singing lifted people up, giving them a visceral, an embodied sense that they were part of something larger than themselves. Over a decade later, in 2003, during a sabbatical month I took in South Africa, I happened to be there when the documentary film Amandla, A Revolution in Four-Part Harmony, was released. I went to see it in Durban, but there were only 3 or 4 other people in the auditorium. It was the only time that I've been giving my money back because it wasn't cost-effective for them to show the movie. So I caught up and saw it in Cape Town. I won't tell you what the taxi ride cost between my hostel and the theater. It was totally worth it. Never, ever underestimate music's power to inspire. When I first mentioned to members of this community during hospitality hour, I think, that I'd be preaching on folk music today, folk music philosophy, several of you lifted up Canadian musicians you love. Some were names I have heard of. Gordon Lightfoot. Who isn't moved when listening to the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? In fact, that may be one of the reasons I chose for talking to you at this time, when the gales of November come early. But not today. Not today. What sealed the choice of today for this little talk was when I realized that today marks the 5th anniversary of Leonard Cohen's death. The late, great Leonard Cohen. But you also introduced me during that hospitality hour to musicians I haven't heard of before, such as the Great Big Sea. Now, during my undergraduate days, I was introduced to Schooner Fair, another band from the Maritimes, and I've been listening to them since. Leviathan, Calgary, My Home Away from Home, Saltwater Farm are all songs that stay with you. After At the end of my first marriage, I became a minor regular, minor being the operative word, at a folk club in Berkeley, California called the Freight and Salvage. The name alone was a perfect description of my mindset, my soul back then. Musicians I heard at the Freight included John Gorka, Lucy Kaplansky, Kathy Kalick, whose younger daughter was my high school sweetheart for a little while, Dar Williams, Iris Dement, and Quebecer Benoit Bourque. In all the shows I went to there, Bourque was the only one who got everyone up to dance at the end of the show. I heard him twice. He did it each time. Those dances were great medicine. And you may be interested to know that Ontario's own Bruce Coburn is set to play the Freight 2 nights next month. If only December was a time when a pastor could get away for a few days. Still, there's one song I want to lift up to you now. Jen and Pat will perform it in just a minute. The song is Delivery Delayed. It has been the constant in each time I preached a sermon called Folksong Philosophy. It's from his album Between the Breaks Live. It's a song about love's power to save us. As such, it is both psychological as well as theological. The song is the best universalist message I've ever heard. If this was a performance, I'd simply turn things over to our musicians who will offer the song to us all in just a minute. But this isn't a performance, it's a sermon. And the song makes a profound claim that may not match everyone's experience. So I need to lift that up and name it now. The last lines of the song are, "Delivery is delayed until at last we're made aware and first reach for love and find 'twas always there." The truth is that love is not always there when we first reach out for it. Simply put, the world does not act according to our wishes or our time frame. I call this human time in relation to what I informally call God's time. And if you are a humanist, I invite you to put on your theological translating caps and translate that as you will. We're not in control the way we might like to be, or at least all the time. But there is, I believe, love available to us. Now, I could go on here about the so-called prosperity gospel people and their dangerous message about conflating achievements and stuff instead of Jesus' admonitions about the promise of God's love. But that's a topic for another day. I'll read the lyrics Stan Rogers wrote, and then our musicians will play. I hope you'll appreciate the song half as much as I do. How early is beginning? From where is there a soul? Do we discover living, or somehow are we told? In sudden pain, in empty cold and blinding light of day, we're given breath, and it takes our breath away. How cruel to unformed fancy the way in which we come, overwhelmed by feeling and sudden loss of love. And what price dark, confining pain, the hardest to forgive, when all at once we're called upon to live. By giant hand we're taken from the womb, that dreaded first horizon, the endless empty room. where communion is lost forever, when a heart first beats alone. Still, it remembers, no matter how it's grown. We grow, but grow apart. We live, but more alone. The more to see, to cry aloud that we are free, to hide our ancient fear of being alone. And how we live in darkness, embracing spiteful cold, refusing any answers, for no one can be told that delivery is delayed, until at last we're made aware and first reach for love and find 'twas always there. So may it be. And now let's listen as those lines were meant to be listened to in song.
Thank you. This is the time in our service that we usually accept the offering. You may go to our website or contact our finance manager to find out how you might keep up with your pledge or make a donation during these very unusual times. Donation baskets are also at the back of the worship hall. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of the congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another.
Jen, Pat, and Doug, when you see me do this, I'm not blowing you a kiss. This is thank you in the sign language that I know. If you want me to blow you a kiss, we can talk. But thank you all. Before we begin to close this time of worship and reflection, a reminder that our hospitality hour will begin online at 11:30. The link is on the church website and was included in Friday's EUU email message. To those in our worship hall, we welcome you to congregate safely, either inside or outside this worship, once this worship service has concluded. Fellowship Hall and this room are available to you for roughly half an hour after the close of the service. And as you have become accustomed, please be mindful to stay masked and maintain social distancing. We extinguish our chalice this morning to words adapted slightly from Lee Hayes and Pete Seeger's song, "Tomorrow is a Highway." Come, let us build a way for all humankind, a way to leave these evil years behind, to travel onward to a better year where love is and there will be no fear. Where there will be no fear. Tomorrow is a highway broad and fair, and we are the many who'll travel there. Tomorrow is a highway broad and fair, and we are the many who build it there, and we will build it there. Our chalice is extinguished, but our connections and our faith remain. Jen, will you sing our closing song now? And now please reach out toward, maybe not touching hands outside your bubble, but reach out toward others who you share this space with. My friends, go in peace, go in love, go in joy, go and enjoy this spectacular sunny day, and may all and all of you be well. Go in peace.